Hey guys! Tonight we drift into the strange and flickering world of Nikola Tesla, the man who decided that the universe probably had a voicemail system, and he might just be the first to pick up the call. Picture yourself standing under a Colorado night sky in 1899, the air thin and sharp, your breath fogging in the cold. Above you, the stars blaze like frozen sparks, and below, a lone laboratory squats on the prairie, humming with potential energy. The wooden walls creak in the wind, but inside, copper coils and massive transformers glint in lamplight, waiting for their cue. Tesla believed that if electricity could jump across gaps of air, maybe voices could leap across gulfs of space. And yes, you're about to join him, though fair warning, you probably won't survive 1 second in that lab if the wrong wire touches you. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, let me know in the comments where you're listening from tonight, and what time it is for you. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You push the rickety door open. The scent hits first, a cocktail of ozone, dust, and the faint tang of burnt varnish. The laboratory stretches like a cathedral to chaos, wires dangling, glass jars filled with silvery liquids, odd metal spheres perched like silent planets. Tesla himself stands tall, gaunt, his dark eyes carrying that mix of exhaustion and exhilaration you've seen only in people who forget to eat because they're too busy trying to outwit the universe. He gestures for you to step closer. His voice, low and accented, carries both authority and a hint of mischief. This is the man who once declared that electricity would flow freely through the air, without wires, like invisible rivers. Historians still argue whether his vision was a practical blueprint or a dreamer's mirage. But in this moment, you feel the conviction radiating from him. The whole world could run on energy pulled straight from the sky. No bills, no wires, just endless light. Quirky tidbit. Tesla sometimes stroked pigeons while explaining these theories to visiting journalists, which honestly is a power move most scientists can't quite pull off. You sit by a bench piled with notebooks, and Tesla points at one filled with jagged, looping diagrams. He talks about resonance, how the Earth itself could vibrate like a struck bell. If tuned correctly, maybe you could not only send signals across continents but across planets. Imagine treating Mars like a neighbour, waving hello with bursts of static. The thought is both charming and unsettling, like leaving your Wi-Fi password taped to the window for anyone in the galaxy to borrow. The night deepens, stars shifting as the lab grows louder. A crackle leaps from a coil, popping against the rafters like fireworks. Tesla laughs, and for a brief moment, you feel as if you're standing in a wizard's lair disguised as a barn. He tells you the prairie wolves outside sometimes howl when his machines roar, as if nature itself answers back. Whether that's a poetic flourish or a nervous fact, you're not sure. And then, in the pauses between arcs of lightning, you notice Tesla listening. Not to the coils, not to the hum of his machines, but to something beyond. His head tilts, his brow furrows, and he mutters about whispers buried in the static. You close your eyes, and yes, you almost think you hear it too. A faint rhythm, a repeating pulse, the sound of someone or something knocking on the universe's wall. Is it real? Historians still debate whether Tesla's strange signals were genuine or simply the interference of earthbound phenomena. Radio waves bouncing off the ionosphere, atmospheric disturbances, or even the chatter of distant storms. But in his eyes, in that night, the conviction glows. He believes someone is out there, and they've just dialed his number. A breeze sneaks in through a cracked shutter, carrying with it the smell of sagebrush and the distant yips of coyotes. It mixes with the hum of the lab, and suddenly you feel caught between two worlds. The grounded earth beneath your boots and the boundless sky above your head. Tesla straddled that line daily, walking with one foot on scientific principle and the other on a dreamscape so vast most people never dared imagine it. You glance at his journal again, at the neat columns of repeated dots and dashes he has sketched. They look like Morse code, but stranger, as if the alphabet of Earth doesn't quite apply. A joke drifts through your sleepy mind. Maybe aliens are just trying to send over a cosmic pizza order. And poor Tesla is the unlucky delivery boy who can't quite read the handwriting. Tesla, unfazed by humour, continues his pacing. He explains that nature itself is alive with vibrations. From the beating of your heart to the pulse of stars, everything hums in resonance. If you could only find the frequency, you could unlock communication with the cosmos. It sounds poetic, mystical, and oddly comforting, like believing the whole universe is one giant radio station waiting for you to tune in. As midnight slides toward dawn, you realize Tesla doesn't want to sleep. His laboratory is his bedroom, his sanctuary, and his battlefield. He barely eats, barely rests, as though afraid he might miss the next whisper from beyond. You shift on your stool, the wooden legs creaking, while Tesla scribbles another sequence into his notebook, muttering about intelligence, about beings who surely watch us as ants watch crumbs. And while the modern skeptic in you wants to say, or maybe that's just static, another part of you, the part softened by night and the lull of his voice, wonders, what if he really did hear someone? What if, on this quiet prairie night, Tesla wasn't alone? The door of the Colorado Springs laboratory swings closed behind you, and the prairie fades to a muffled hush. Inside, the silence is different, thicker, broken only by the faint buzz of current crawling across copper coils. Tesla motions for you to follow him deeper into the hall, where the machines loom like giants resting in uneasy slumber. Your boots scuff against the wooden floorboards, and each step seems to echo like a drumbeat, a reminder that you're trespassing in the temple of a man who thought lightning could be tamed. Tesla stops beside the centerpiece of his workshop, towering coil so massive it nearly brushes the rafters. Wires snake upward into a copper sphere that hangs like a second sun, silent for now, but aching to explode into light. He places a hand on it with casual intimacy, as if greeting an old friend. You half expect him to whisper, "Behave tonight." Here's a historical fact you can hang on to. In the summer of '89, Tesla moved his operations to Colorado Springs specifically because the city had a power station willing to give him unlimited electricity. Unlimited, like handing a fireworks enthusiast the keys to the entire Roman candle warehouse. Historians still argue whether the city understood what kind of bargain they'd bought. Tesla assured them he was conducting experiments in wireless telegraphy. What he didn't say was that his vision reached far beyond telegrams and human borders. The quirky detail, locals complained about sparks leaping from water taps and horses collapsing in fright when Tesla fired up his experiments. The ground itself seemed to buzz with electricity, as though the prairie had become one massive extension cord. Imagine watering your flowers and getting a shock that makes you think Zeus is flirting with you. You find yourself at a long workbench cluttered with glass tubes, tiny gears, and sketches pinned like crime scene evidence. Tesla bends over a device no larger than a cigar box, fiddling with its brass knobs. He explains, in that matter-of-fact voice, that this is a receiver tuned to catch faint electromagnetic signals, the whispers of the world, as he calls them. You watch the needle quiver, and a scratchy static hum fills the air. For a moment, it's just noise, like bacon frying in another universe. But Tesla leans in, his brow furrowed. He insists there's a pattern hidden inside, something rhythmic, something intentional, and you tilt your head, trying to hear it, but all you catch is the occasional pop and hiss. It's like staring at clouds. You want to see the shapes he describes, even if they're not there. A small joke bubbles up. You wonder if the aliens, if they exist, are just playing interstellar hide-and-seek, giggling as Tesla strains to catch their footsteps. As he explains, you realize Tesla's lab is more than wires and machines. It's an island of defiance. The rest of the scientific world, while intrigued, treats him with skepticism. Guglielmo Marconi is already being praised for his first wireless beam transmissions, and the press has begun to crown him the father of radio. Tesla fumes quietly, certain that he was years ahead, that the very foundations of Marconi's work rest on his patents. But instead of fighting only for credit, he pushes farther outward to the stars. If Marconi wants to talk across the Atlantic, Tesla wants to talk across the solar system. The night grows colder, and your breath fogies as you glance at the frosted windows. Beyond them, the prairie stretches endless and dark, dotted with faint lanterns from distant homesteads. You imagine the settlers out there, listening to coyotes, completely unaware that just a few miles away, a man is trying to chat with Martians. Tesla's ambition feels both ludicrous and intoxicating. He gestures suddenly, and with a dramatic flick of a switch, the laboratory erupts. Bolts leap from the coil, blinding arcs of blue-white lightning that crack against the ceiling and spit down to the floor. The roar is deafening. The entire building shakes like a drum. You feel the hair on your arms lift as if ghostly fingers are tugging upward. The air itself becomes sharp with ozone, prickling against your tongue. And Tesla? He stands perfectly still in the middle of it, arms crossed, his long moustache catching the glow. He looks almost smug, like a man hosting a dinner party where the guest of honor is Zeus himself. The sound is so relentless that your brain starts to soften around the edges, lulled by the thunder into a strange kind of calm. Then, just as suddenly, silence. The coil sputters and dies, leaving the air buzzing with ghost static. Your ears ring. Tesla turns back to the receiver, scribbles another note, and mutters about messages that must be decoded. Historians still argue whether these experiments produced meaningful data or just pages of misunderstood noise, but Tesla wasn't concerned with doubt. He was chasing whispers, even if the world around him thought he was just hearing things. And you realize, sitting in that dim light with the smell of smoke and ozone clinging to your clothes, that this is what separates dreamers from the rest. Where most people stop at, that's impossible. Tesla leaned forward and asked, "But what if it isn't?" Your eyes drift to the dark ceiling beams. A shadow moves across them. Just a trick of the flickering lamplight. But you can't help thinking, what if someone really is watching? What if the night sky is crowded with eyes? You shift in your seat, and the wooden stool complains with a creak, as if warning you not to think too hard. Tesla, meanwhile, is already lost in another string of calculations, convinced that the universe has more to say. The prairie dawn never truly quiets, but in Tesla's lab, it feels like morning and midnight are the same thing. Time dissolves under the constant hum of electricity. You find yourself slouched in a chair, eyelids heavy, when Tesla jolts you awake by cranking another switch. The great coil groans, then erupts with sparks that leap higher than a house. Lightning lashes the rafters, filling the room with blue-white fire that pulses like a storm bottled indoors. The sound isn't just loud, it's alive. It rattles the wooden beams, slams against your chest like a drum, and leaves your teeth tingling. You instinctively duck, but Tesla doesn't flinch. He steps forward, arms folded, as if daring the bolts to lick his shoes. In fact, he looks almost serene, illuminated in strobes of electric fire. The lab feels like a cathedral of thunder. Tesla its high priest. And you, well, you're the nervous altar boy wondering whether the whole place will burn down. Historical fact. On July 3rd, 1889, Tesla managed to produce man-made lightning bolts over 40 meters long. The thunderclaps were so loud they were heard in town, and the sparks set nearby grass on fire. Neighbors complained that his experiments made sparks shoot from the ground, crackle along metal fences, and terrify their livestock. Horses buckled, chickens panicked to his second, and one farmer swore his cow gave sour milk for a week. Quirky science comes with quirky side effects. Tesla, of course, barely noticed the chaos he unleashed outside. For him, the prairie was a laboratory floor, and nature itself an unwitting test subject. Historians still argue whether his most dramatic experiments were carefully calculated or dangerously reckless improvisations, but either way, the results made headlines. You stand, ears ringing, and wander toward the door. Outside, the night prairie is lit up like daylight whenever the coil fires, each flash revealing startled coyotes and wide-eyed cattle at the fence line. Imagine living a mile away and seeing a barn glow with constant lightning, like Frankenstein's castle. But without the courtesy of subtitles, no wonder rumours spread that Tesla was conjuring storms. Some townsfolk whispered that he could control weather itself. Tesla never denied it outright. He only smiled faintly, which somehow made it worse. Inside, he's already at the chalkboard, sketching elegant curves and spirals. He explains how energy flows through the earth and sky like invisible rivers, and how his coil merely taps into that current. His hand darts across the board in sweeping arcs, chalk squealing. You catch maybe half the words: resonance, frequency, harmonics. To you, it sounds like someone reading poetry in a foreign tongue. But Tesla's face glows with conviction. He pauses and asks if you can hear the earth. You blink, unsure, but he insists. He drags you to the receiver again and turns the dial. At first, it's static. Then beneath it, faint pulses, rhythmic like a distant heartbeat. He leans close, whispering. Do you hear them? Voices? You nod. Mostly because denying him feels impossible when he's this intense. One of his assistants once joked that Tesla's signals might just be echoes of his own machinery bouncing off the ionosphere, but Tesla dismissed that. He was convinced the patterns had intention. He even wrote that they were too regular to be terrestrial. Historians still debate whether he was detecting the radio emissions of Jupiter, static from thunderstorms, or just interference from Marconi's early experiments. But Tesla's interpretation that he had brushed against intelligence from beyond was far bolder. The coil erupts again, sparks lash across the floor like snapping whips. You flinch and Tesla chuckles. He tells you not to fear the lightning, for it is only obedient electricity. Easy for him to say. You're pretty sure if obedience looks like that. Your toaster at home has been staging a quiet rebellion for years. A moment of silence follows. The smell of ozone hangs heavy, sharp enough to sting your nostrils. The lab's shadows creep back in, darker than before, as if recoiling from the brightness. Tesla wipes sweat from his brow, mutters something about needing larger coils, bigger towers, stronger currents. He dreams aloud about building transmitters the size of skyscrapers, machines powerful enough to shout across the planets. The sheer scale makes your knees weak, both with awe and with the quiet terror of wondering who exactly might answer. And then, in a rare flicker of humour, Tesla smiles at you and says, if they are listening, perhaps they are laughing at us. You laugh too, nervously, half expecting a knock on the roof from some cosmic neighbour annoyed at the noise. As the sparks fade, you sink back into your chair, heartbeat still racing from the spectacle. Tesla scribbles in his notebook, whispering in half sentences, chasing the rhythm of the pulses he believes are voices. Outside, the prairie slowly calms, but inside, the echoes of man-made thunder linger in your bones. You realize this is only the beginning of his cosmic chase. The storm inside the lab settles into uneasy quiet. Your ears still buzz with phantom thunder, like the aftermath of standing too close to a stage speaker at a rock concert you didn't buy tickets for. Tesla, unbothered, slips back into the rhythm of scribbling and adjusting dials. You rub your temples, trying to shake off the ringing, when suddenly his head snaps up. He gestures you closer with a quick, almost childlike urgency. On the workbench, the receiver crackles. At first, you hear nothing more than the familiar static, pops and hisses, like frying bacon on a skillet too far away to smell. But then, something different. A sharp pulse, then another, 3 beats, pause, 3 beats, pause. The rhythm feels deliberate, like a hand tapping impatiently on a table. Tesla's eyes widen, his expression equal parts fear and delight. He whispers, there, Do you hear them? Your skin prickles. Maybe it's just coincidence. Maybe it's interference from the nearby telegraph lines. Historians still argue whether Tesla's strange signals were anything more than terrestrial echoes. Some suggest they were simply the earliest accidental recordings of pulsars, giant stars that beam out radio signals in perfect intervals. Others claim it was Marconi's transmission skipping through the atmosphere, but in this moment, with Tesla leaning over the receiver like a priest at an oracle, it feels like something more. He scribbles the pattern into his notebook. Dots and dashes, repeating sequences. They look like Morse code, but not quite. You can't help but joke under your breath. Maybe the aliens just discovered texting and they're stuck on the world's worst signal plan. Tesla doesn't smile. He's transfixed, muttering about intelligence beyond the earth. The night outside feels heavier now. The prairie's vast silence presses against the windows. You almost expect to see lights hovering above the plains, waiting. Tesla insists the signals are proof, faint but undeniable, that we are not alone. His voice carries that tremor of obsession, the kind that makes skeptics roll their eyes but also makes you shiver with possibility. Quirky detail. Tesla once suggested that Mars was the most likely home of these voices. At the turn of the century, scientists like Percival Lowell had popularized the idea of Martian canals, vast irrigation networks built by intelligent beings. The public was primed for the idea that Mars was buzzing with life. So when Tesla announced he might have heard signals, the dots connected neatly in the public imagination. Aliens? Of course they're on Mars. Where else would they be? You lean closer to the receiver, straining your ears. The pulses return, faint, repetitive, oddly soothing, a lullaby from across the stars, or maybe just the world's loneliest dial-up modem. Either way, you're hooked. Tesla turns away from the machine, pacing in wide, restless circles, his hands clasped behind his back, his long strides nearly carrying him into the walls. He talks about contact, about preparing humanity for the revelation, but then he hesitates, as though aware of how fragile the idea sounds. He sighs, muttering about ridicule, about rivals stealing his thunder. The burden of genius weighs heavily, and you see in his face the exhaustion of a man trying to carry a message too big for his age. Historians still argue whether Tesla truly believed he had made first contact, or whether he framed his findings in dramatic terms to captivate attention and perhaps funding. Yet reading his notes, hearing his intensity tonight, you sense it wasn't a gimmick. For him, it was as real as the sparks leaping from his coils. You glance again at the patterns in his notebook. There's something hypnotic about them. Neat rows of marks repeating with a mechanical precision. Your eyelids grow heavy, and for a moment you wonder if the signals aren't from Mars at all, but from somewhere inside you, your heartbeat, your breath, mirrored back by the machine. The thought makes you shiver. Tesla interrupts with a sudden declaration. We are not the only beings in this universe. We are but ants in a vast meadow. You half expect him to add, and I've just heard the grasshoppers singing. Instead, he stares at you, eyes glowing with conviction, daring you to doubt him. The lab is quiet again, the pulses fading back into static. Outside, the wind howls faintly across the plains, rattling the shutters. You sit frozen, replaying the rhythm in your mind. 3 beats, pause, 3 beats, pause, whatever it was, alien, Martian, or just a cosmic prankster. You know one thing, Tesla has found his obsession, and whether the world believes him or not, he's not going to let it go. You're still hunched over the bench, the faint rhythm of those pulses looping in your head like a song you didn't ask to learn. Tesla, however, is pacing the length of the lab with that restless stride of his, as if the entire building is too small to contain his thoughts. He stops abruptly, stares at the ceiling beams, then declares with the startling certainty, "It must be Mars." Mars, of course, in 1899, it was the planet everyone had their eyes on. Percival Lowell had just published his maps of Martian canals, insisting they were artificial, the handiwork of a civilization desperately trying to irrigate its dying world. Newspapers devoured the idea, Artists sketched Martian cities, and even school children whispered about neighbours beyond the night sky. So when Tesla connected his pulses to possible Martian signals, the leap felt almost natural. Historians still argue whether Tesla really believed the voices came from Mars, or whether he used the public's obsession as a convenient hook. But in the hush of the Colorado Springs lab, his conviction feels genuine. He speaks of Martians not as fantasy, but as colleagues, distant scientists tapping back through the void. He gestures for you to sit at a cluttered desk. On the surface are carefully drawn charts of planetary orbits marked with pencil notes about opposition dates and optimal windows for transmission. He explains that when Earth and Mars drift close together, signals might pass more easily between them. The logic is sound in its own way. You can't help but grin, thinking Tesla basically wanted to schedule a cosmic phone call. "Hey Martians, can you hear me now?" The quirky part? Tesla once suggested that perhaps Martians were trying to say something urgent, maybe even warning humanity. He imagined them as benevolent teachers, advanced but not hostile. While H.G. Wells was terrifying readers with War of the Worlds, Tesla was more optimistic. If they had the technology to reach us, he reasoned, surely they had the wisdom to use it kindly. That's the kind of gamble only a dreamer or someone very lonely would take. The lab flickers with lamplight as Tesla scratches notes furiously. He mutters about constructing larger receivers, building towers that could hurl signals strong enough to bounce between worlds. His voice rises with intensity, but his hands tremble slightly, betraying the exhaustion of sleepless nights. You wonder when he last ate anything more substantial than coffee and nervous energy. Outside, the prairie is still, save for the low whistle of wind slipping through the cracks in the walls. You step toward the window, staring at the cold stars. Somewhere out there is Mars, a reddish spark glowing faintly above the horizon. It feels impossibly far, and yet, after hearing those pulses, strangely close, as if you could almost stretch your arm and tap its surface. Tesla joins you at the window, his thin frame silhouetted against the starlight. He whispers about destiny, about humanity's place in the cosmos. He insists that intelligent life beyond Earth is not only possible but inevitable. His certainty is infectious, even as the skeptical part of you mutters about static and coincidence. The quiet part, the part softened by fatigue and starlight, leans toward belief. A thought crosses your mind. What if the Martians really did hear him? What if, in some lonely observatory beneath a Martian sky, another figure stands hunched over a strange machine, muttering to themselves about signals from Earth? The image makes you chuckle, but then a shiver follows, because if they are listening, what will they think of us? Our wars, our chaos, our habit of electrocuting cows by accident when one man decides to play with lightning on the prairie. Tesla breaks the silence with another of his cryptic lines. The universe is not silent, it is a symphony, and we are latecomers to the hall. You don't know whether he's quoting someone or inventing poetry on the spot, but either way, it sticks with you. You picture the cosmos as an orchestra, every planet and star humming its own part, and Tesla straining to catch the faint notes of a distant violin. The receiver crackles again, faint pulses threading through the static. Tesla leans in eagerly, scribbling new marks. You tilt your head, and for a brief, dizzying moment, you almost believe it too, that someone on Mars is knocking politely, waiting for us to answer. Morning in Colorado Springs doesn't creep in gently. It barges through the shutters with golden light, revealing the lab in all its chaotic glory. Coils lean like skeletal towers, wires sprawl across the floor like lazy snakes, and notebooks are stacked in precarious piles that look one sneeze away from collapse. You rub your eyes, but Tesla has been awake all night, still scribbling. His energy seems limitless, as though the signals have wired themselves straight into his nervous system. And now, the world knows, word of his messages from Mars has spilled beyond the prairie. A journalist visiting the lab published a sensational account, claiming Tesla was on the brink of interplanetary communication. The newspapers pounced like cats on dangling string. Headlines screamed about Martian messages, and illustrations of bug-eyed aliens twinkled across front pages. You can almost hear the ink drying on the stories as Tesla beams with satisfaction. Historical fact, in 1809 and 1900, multiple newspapers ran stories on Tesla's supposed contact with Mars. They quoted him as saying the signals were too regular to be a mere coincidence and hinted that humanity was on the cusp of cosmic dialogue. The public devoured it. After all, this was the same era when wealthy citizens built backyard observatories hoping to glimpse Martian canals. The quirky twist? Some newspapers didn't just report on it, they embellished wildly. One paper joked that Martians might already be among us, disguised as eccentric inventors. Tesla, with his odd habits, sleepless nights, and pigeon obsession, made an easy target for caricature. You chuckle, imagining Tesla as the world's first alien influencer. Stay tuned, I'll be dropping my Martian collab soon. But behind the humour, you sense tension. Tesla reads the papers with narrowed eyes. Praise is fleeting, ridicule is sticky, and he knows it. For every article that hails him as a genius pioneer, another paints him as a madman conjuring thunder. Historians still argue whether this media frenzy boosted his career or irreparably damaged it. Fame is a double-edged sword, and Tesla never wore armour well. You glance at one clipping on the bench, yellowed and curling. A sketch depicts Tesla in his lab, staring at a glowing globe while ghostly Martian figures hover above him. The caption reads, "Man in Colorado sends and receives messages from Mars. It's equal parts awe and mockery. Tesla, however, pins it proudly to the wall like a medal. Outside, the prairie town buzzes with gossip. In barbershops, men argue about what Martians might look like. In parlours, women speculate whether the signals are a cosmic warning. Children doodle rockets in school books decades before the first real one would launch." You realise that Tesla's whispers have stirred not just his own imagination, but the world's collective dream. Yet the ridicule bites. When rival scientists are interviewed, they chuckle politely and dismiss the signals as atmospheric noise. One even suggests Tesla simply misheard his own machinery. Tesla bristles at such claims, his voice sharp when he mutters about small minds unwilling to grasp big truths. His pride, like his coils, crackles dangerously close to overload. Still, he leans over his receiver each night, tuning, adjusting, scribbling. You join him in the silence, ears straining for the faint rhythm. When the pulses appear again, soft, insistent, your heart skips. You almost want to run to the nearest newspaper yourself and shout, it's real, I heard it." But you know how it would sound. Ridiculous, just another wild story to feed the column inches. Tesla sits back, hands clasped tightly, and murmurs, "They will laugh now, but someday they will remember that I was first." His voice cracks slightly on that last word, first. And you wonder if that, more than aliens, is what he's chasing. Not just proof of cosmic neighbours, but proof that Nikola Tesla was the man who opened the door. Historians still argue whether he exaggerated his claims to secure funding, or whether he genuinely believed contact was at hand. Either way, the story had already escaped him, running wild in the press, shaping his reputation for decades to come. You lean back in your chair, letting the static hum wash over you. Outside, the town is buzzing with gossip, but in here, it feels as though only two listeners exist, you and Tesla, straining to hear voices in the cosmic dark. The lab is no longer just a workshop, it has become a stage. Reporters in bowler hats shuffle across the wooden floor, their pens scratching as Tesla paces before them. He gestures dramatically toward the towering coils, his lean figure illuminated by sparks that leap like restless ghosts. "Gentlemen," he declares, "we are receiving signals from another world." You stand at the edge, watching the crowd. Some scribble furiously, their eyes wide with awe. Others smirk, exchanging knowing glances as if to say, "Here he goes again." It is a performance Tesla relishes, and yet beneath the confidence, you catch flickers of desperation. He is not merely lecturing, he is defending his place in history. Historical fact, Tesla truly announced to the press that he had intercepted extraterrestrial signals. He speculated they might have come from Mars, though he left room for ambiguity, speaking of intelligent control rather than declaring outright alien contact. The nuance, however, was lost in translation. Headlines reduced his cautious phrasing to bold proclamations, and soon he was branded the man who talks to Mars. One newspaper even illustrated Tesla standing atop a mountain, holding a lightning bolt aloft like a cosmic antenna. Another ran a cartoon where Martians, peering through telescopes, gossiped about Earth's strange new voice. The public adored these whimsical depictions, but scientists bristled. To them, Tesla was overstepping, muddying the line between speculation and proof. You overhear one reporter whisper, "He's either a genius or a lunatic." The words sting, though Tesla doesn't flinch. Instead, he launches into a lecture on resonance. His hands carving invisible diagrams in the air, he speaks of Earth as a conductor, of planets as tuning forks vibrating in the cosmic symphony. The metaphor is dazzling. You almost see it, but the skeptical looks remain. After the reporters leave, the lab feels heavier. Tesla slumps into his chair, the fire gone from his eyes. You hear him murmur, almost to himself. They see only theatrics. They do not hear the music. And yet, the fascination spreads. Amateur scientists begin building crude receivers, hoping to confirm Tesla's claims. Letters arrive daily, some from professors demanding data, others from dreamers offering theories of Martian civilizations. One man insists that Martians are trying to warn humanity about an impending comet. Another swears the signals are instructions for a utopian city. Tesla sorts them carefully, his long fingers brushing over each page as though searching for a kindred mind. But there is danger in the obsession. Funding grows uncertain. Wealthy backers who once saw promise in Tesla's wireless energy schemes now hesitate. If his name becomes too tightly bound to Martian fantasies, will they still invest? Even his friend Morgan, always calculating, begins to keep distance. In the cold logic of capital, genius is valuable, but only if it appears sane. Late one night, after the last letter is filed, Tesla stares out the window. The prairie wind whistles against the glass. "Do you think I am mad?" he asks you suddenly, his accent thick with fatigue. You hesitate. You think of the rhythmic pulses, the way they seemed almost deliberate. You think of the ridicule, the cartoons. Finally, you answer, "I think you were listening where no one else dares." He smiles faintly, the expression both grateful and haunted. Then, as if to reassure himself, he whispers, "Someday, when they reach us, when the ships come, they will remember that Nikola Tesla first called into the dark." Historical aside, today, scientists believe Tesla was likely picking up natural radio emissions, possibly from Jupiter, or even signals from early experiments in wireless telegraphy. But at the time, no one knew such cosmic radio waves existed. To Tesla, the universe itself seemed to be tapping back. You glance at the receiver again, its copper coils gleaming in the lamplight. The static hums softly, like a heartbeat. Was it just noise? Or was it a message too vast for human minds to decipher? And so, night after night, Tesla keeps listening, and you, unwilling to leave him alone in the silence, keep listening too. The years pass, and the world shifts around you. Radio, once Tesla's dream, blooms into reality, but under another's name. Marconi's transatlantic signal captures headlines, and soon he's hailed as the father of wireless communication. Tesla, watching from the sidelines, clenches his jaw. "He stole my ideas," he mutters, pacing in circles, his long coat flaring behind him. But history is blind, and men are deaf. You remember the night when Tesla tried to explain his vision to financiers? A world linked not by wires, but by waves, every home bathed in invisible energy. They nodded politely, but their wallets snapped shut when his words veered toward Martians and messages from beyond. You frightened them with too much truth. You told him. He didn't answer. only stared at the great tower blueprint pinned to the wall. That tower, Wardenclyffe, soon becomes Tesla's temple, rising on Long Island like a strange lighthouse. It hums with the promise of boundless energy. The locals whisper that it is a weapon, that Tesla will call lightning down from the heavens. Children dare each other to touch the chain-link fence, swearing they can feel a pulse in the metal. At night, the dome glows faintly, as though it has caught the moonlight in its copper ribs. Inside, Tesla works tirelessly. He believes the tower will not only transmit power, but also pierce the veil of space. Contact with distant worlds. To him, the Martian signals were only the beginning, a whisper before the conversation. One day, he says, eyes shining with fevered intensity, this tower will speak across the planets. But the money runs dry. J.P. Morgan, once a cautious ally, grows impatient. Other investors vanish, lured by safer, more profitable ventures. Wardenclyffe falls silent, its vast skeleton abandoned to weeds and rust. Tesla, shoulders slumped, wanders through its empty halls like a priest without a congregation. Historical fact, Wardenclyffe Tower was indeed intended as a wireless communication and power transmission station. Construction began in 1901, funded partly by Morgan, but by 1906 financial support collapsed and the project was abandoned. Eventually, the tower was demolished in 1917, its promise never fulfilled. For Tesla, the failure is not just financial, it is personal. He begins to retreat from public life, avoiding the reporters who once flocked to his demonstrations. When he does speak, it is often of other worlds, of interplanetary signals, of a cosmic brotherhood awaiting us among the stars. Some lean forward eagerly, sensing prophecy, others roll their eyes. One evening, you find him seated in the lobby of the Hotel New Yorker, a stack of notes spread across the table. He is older now, his hair thinning, his eyes still sharp but haunted. He scribbles diagrams of electrical fields, alternating currents, planetary alignments. On one page, in shaky script, he writes, "If they reply, who will listen?" You sit beside him. The hum of the city outside muffled by the thick glass. Times Square glows with neon. Marconi's name glitters in magazines. And yet Tesla speaks not of rivalry but of destiny. "I am convinced," he says softly, "that we are not alone, but perhaps we are not yet ready to hear the voices that reach for us." Historical aside, in his later years, Tesla made several claims of developing technologies capable of contacting extraterrestrials, though by then his reputation had dimmed. His once celebrated genius became entangled with eccentricity, leaving his ideas adrift between science and myth. As he gathers his papers, you notice something strange. On one torn sheet, he has sketched not circuits or coils, but a shape, a great eye, floating above a globe, surrounded by radiating lines. Beneath it, a single word, observer. You look at him, curious, but he only folds the page and tucks it into his pocket. "Someday," he murmurs, "we will understand who listens when we speak." The city outside roars with the future. Cars, radios, skyscrapers, but Tesla's gaze drifts upward, past the noise, toward the black heavens where he still imagines faint, rhythmic pulses threading through the void, and in the quiet between your heartbeats, you almost think you hear them too. The late years of Tesla's life settle into an odd rhythm. Each morning, he leaves his modest hotel room in Manhattan and walks to the park to feed pigeons. It is not a hobby, but a ritual, one he performs with near sacred devotion. His tall, stooped frame bends as he scatters seeds. The pigeons gather, fluttering in clouds around him, their wings catching the sunlight like broken mirrors. You join him once, curious. "Why pigeons?" you ask. Tesla smiles faintly. His voice is quiet, almost reverent. "Because they listen, humans chase wealth, recognition, war, but these creatures know silence. In their eyes, I see peace." He reaches down, and a pure white pigeon lands gently on his arm. Cooing softly, He strokes its feathers as though handling fragile porcelains. Then, with a whisper, "This. She loves me. And I love her. As long as I have her, my life has meaning." Historical note: in his final years, Tesla indeed cared for pigeons in New York City, often feeding them daily. He claimed a particular white pigeon was his closest companion, confessing in an interview that he loved it as a man loves a woman. Yet Tesla's mind does not rest. Even as his funds dwindle and the world forgets him, he drafts new inventions, oscillators that could shake buildings apart and beams of concentrated energy capable of stopping armies, machines to harness cosmic rays. Reporters who stumble upon him in hotel lobbies find themselves scribbling wild headlines about death rays and machines of doom. Some dismiss him as a relic, a genius who lost his way. Others, quietly, wonder if his claims are not entirely fantasy. Governments take notice. Files marked confidential begin to thicken with Tesla's name. You remember one stormy night when he beckoned you close, his voice urgent. "The earth itself can be made to tremble," he said, tapping his cane against the floor in rhythm. The right frequency, the right resonance, it would topple bridges, level some cities, as if they were toys. And yet, do you know what frightens me most? Not the destruction, but the silence that would follow. What if no one answered back? Historical aside, Tesla once claimed to have built a mechanical oscillator that nearly brought down his own laboratory through vibrations, though whether this was true or a tale to impress is still debated. His proposed death ray weapon also fascinated militaries, though no working model was ever confirmed. As his reputation declines, Tesla grows increasingly isolated. Friends die, patrons withdraw, and even newspapers that once celebrated him now print cartoons of the eccentric wizard. But in his solitude, he writes about the cosmos with a calm certainty. There is a frequency, he notes in one letter, a universal hum that threads through all things. Perhaps it is not merely the voice of nature, but a message awaiting our comprehension. You sit with him one evening, the city's din echoing faintly through the thin hotel walls. He coughs into a handkerchief, his frame gaunt, his eyes shadowed. "They will not remember me kindly," he says at last. "They will call me mad, but perhaps one day, when mankind listens closely, they will hear what I heard." The white pigeon return, tapping softly against the window. Tesla opens it with trembling hands, and the bird flutters onto the table, scattering his notes. It looks at him with steady black eyes, unblinking, as though carrying secrets from some far-off place. For a moment, you wonder, does Tesla see in this bird a symbol, a messenger, a reflection of the Martian signals that once stirred his dreams? He strokes its wings gently, whispers something you cannot catch, and closes his eyes. The room feels suspended, as though the hum of the universe itself has paused to listen, and you realize, to Tesla, the line between science and the mystical was never a boundary but a bridge. His pigeons, his machines, his signals from Mars. They were all part of one great conversation, one he believed the world had yet to join. The final days arrive quietly, almost unannounced. Tesla withdraws deeper into his hotel room at the New Yorker, room 3327, curtains drawn. Light bulbs dim to the soft amber glow he preferred. The once celebrated inventor who dreamed of illuminating cities now lives in near darkness, surviving on warm milk, honey, and his beloved pigeons. You enter one evening, the carpet muffling your steps. The air smells faintly of ozone and dusted papers. Tesla sits upright in bed, his notebook balanced on his knees, his thin fingers sketching invisible diagrams into the air. He no longer speaks often, but when he does, it is always with the same fire. "The universe," he whispers, "is not empty. It is filled with music. Every star vibrates in harmony, and we..." His voice falters, then steadies. We are instruments, poorly tuned, but capable of singing. Historical note: in his last years, Tesla lived in hotels around New York, often leaving bills unpaid. The Hotel New Yorker became his final home, where he remained largely reclusive, working on papers that never saw publication. One morning, you find him thinner, paler, yet strangely serene. He gestures weakly toward the window where the white pigeon rests, feathers gleaming in the slant of winter sunlight. "She comes every day," he murmurs, "because she knows I cannot follow her." He smiles faintly, his eyes glistening with something between joy and sorrow. "When she no longer returns, I will know my work is done." The days slip past. Reporters still print wild speculations. Tesla builds beam to end all wars, but Tesla's reality is quieter. His machines remain blueprints, his laboratories memories. His greatest experiments now play out only in thought. On the evening of January 7th, 1943, snow drifts against the windows of Manhattan. You linger in the hallway, uneasy, as though the air itself anticipates something. Tesla has not come out all day. Inside, he lies upon the bed, still and frail, his notes scattered across the side table. Fragments of equations, sketches of coils, half-finished musings about Martian transmissions. The pigeon is gone. Historical record: Tesla died alone on January 7th, 1943, at the age of 86. His body was discovered by a maid 2 days later. He left no family, no fortune, only trunks of papers filled with unfinished visions. Much of his material was seized by the UBE, government under the Office of Alien Property, sparking endless rumours about lost inventions. You step closer, heart tight, in the dim light. Tesla seems at rest, his expression not of defeat, but of a man who finally drifted into a long-awaited dream. Outside, the city hums, electric lights flickering, radios buzzing, subways rattling, the very lifeblood Tesla once conjured from imagination into reality. And perhaps, just perhaps, his final breath carried with it that hum he so often spoke of, the universal frequency, the hidden song of the cosmos. The white pigeon never returns, but the world unknowingly continues to carry his resonance. Each glowing bulb, each signal pulsing through the air, each whisper of static across the void, these are fragments of Tesla's dream, alive and unending. You close his notebook gently, as if sealing a sacred text. His handwriting trails off mid-sentence, the last words barely legible. The future will belong to. The rest is silence. And so you leave, stepping into the cold New York night. Snowflakes fall like sparks against the dark, and the city lights burn brighter than ever. Somewhere, you think, Tesla would have smiled at this, the world illuminated, still humming, still alive with energy. You breathe deeply, the hum settling into you too, and as you walk away, you whisper a wish to the stars. Rest now, Nikola, the world is listening.